What's happening, folks? Welcome to the TPO Doc Talk podcast special edition interview series. How in the heck is everybody doing? I hope you're enjoying that spring weather that we've been getting hit with out there. At least Colorado, we've been seeing a little bit of it out there. We don't know. I think a few other people. I'm seeing some good thaw off. I love when the state parks start talking about ice off. They say the ice is changing. They say the ice is breaking up. And so we know it's just around the corner, man. And that open water season is here, and we will be getting things rolling. I'm over the winter. I used to like the snow. I don't like it anymore the older I get. I could decorate a palm tree just the same. I know I could. Hey, man, before we get going too much further here, as always, each one of our episodes being brought to you by the Romans Warrior Foundation, hashtag helping is healing. Romans Warrior Foundation and all of its entities and its programs that it has out there offering healing across the nation. Reach out. One of the major ones we have, of course, is the Global War on Terror's Wall of Remembrance. This is the only mobile monument in the United States that covers the entire GWAT era. That's 1983 all the way to 2021. This is pretty much my generation's Vietnam Wall, man, and it's a absolute life-changing event to have a chance to witness the wall and see it. If you've got a big event, something going on in a town that you have out there, or have an organization, a business that's putting on a big deal, take that thing to the next level. Hit up the Romans Warrior Foundation, get the wall out there. 120-foot long memorial, education side one side and the honor side on the other. Of course, at the Romans Warrior Foundation, we also have our little group, which is the RWF Field Ops Division, Hoosiers with Hearts, Label 22, and the Stop 22 Tour. Big shout out, as always, Mr. Adam Bird, all the other podcasts on the Heroes Media Group for hosting this and having us on their network here. We're honored to be a part of this and reaching our demographic out there. All right, the bills are paid. Hey, man, a couple cool things going on in the works right now. We've been updating quite a bit, and you can go over and check out. A great way to support the TPO itself and get yourself some cool merch is go check out the truepatriotoutfitters.org/store-2. That's our store that we have out there. We got hats, we got t-shirts, of course, got the 2025 calendar. All these things set at the price of $22, and all proceeds from this will go to our programs to help get our nation's warfighting families outdoors, get them in kayaks, get them out there, and let the healing powers of the outdoors do its work. So, yeah, go check that bad boy out there. All right. So that's that. We got everything handed down here. My guest tonight is a fellow teammate of mine with Nucanoe. As you guys know, with the TPO, Nucanoe has been a critical partner of ours from day one. Since we got into this and we decided to move into the kayak game. Nucanoe has been at the heart of that. Blake Young, his entire team over there. American-made kayaks, veteran-owned organization, fit the bill, plus the fact that these things, ultimate stability, affordability, top-line quality, and customer service behind it. These things, in my opinion, still to this date, Nucanoe still is especially the Unlimited that I fish out of. It's the ultimate fishing machine, man. Set her up how you want and you're good to go. Well, we have a few teammates across the nation here, and we've finally got a West Coast brother of mine here. I'm about as far west as most. I talk to most people until we step into his state in California, where a lot of anglers are out there. We have with us Mr. Joseph Taxi. Let's go ahead and bring him into the studio here. And once I figure out where it's at, hang on, I'll find it. There it is. What's happening, Joseph? How's it going, man?
Good, man. How's it going? Thanks for having me today.
Of course, dude. Of course. Yeah, it's any chance to talk Nucanoe, talk fishing, learn about another angler out there, especially somebody on the West Coast side of things. Usually I'm always hitting people up that are out of the Midwest or East Coast or down south or whatever. It's,
the prime fishing states, Yeah.
Although you're in an area, dude, that's legendary, man. I mean, California, it has those strain out there, double digit in some places. I mean, it's legendary stuff, but that's not all over the state, right?
It is, for the most part. I mean, you can pretty much go anywhere in the state, and that lake has the opportunity to produce a double-digit bass for you.
Dang.
There are certain lakes, obviously, where that is obviously a much higher statistic. But there aren't very many lakes that you can go to that simply don't have that quality of fish.
Right.
It's in every lake. It's pretty much all of our bodies of water, but that also comes with the side effect of having thousands and thousands of anglers out there targeting them 24/7. And when you think you're cool and do something different, there's guaranteed somebody out there doing the same thing as you.
And you can fish 12 months out of the year, right? I mean, you go year
You're
round.
talking about ice out over here, and my wife wishes that I had ice because she would see me more. She keeps getting told that the tournament season ends and then I'd be home more, and then here I am
You
wearing
lie.
10 layers, going fishing in December and January, trying to target those double-digit bass with big swim baits.
We get ice, we get snow, but we also get 60-degree weather in between it all. And so here in Colorado, you just got to be ready to go at a moment's notice, because no weather app is ever right out here. It just never works. So you just got to pay attention, keep watching. And usually if you're, within that 12-hour time frame, then you can decide, can you get out? So yeah, that's, we deal with that, but that would be cool, man, to be in a place where you didn't have to worry about that. That's how you get those bigger quality fish. I mean, they can feed
Yeah.
throughout.
I mean, they can still feed throughout in ice. I mean, if you're talking, proper ice over lakes, that's 4 degrees Celsius, right? So it's still like 40-degree water temp. They're still eating. But what really, in my opinion, grows our giants is the fact that our water is really deep. We don't really see a lot of reservoirs outside of the state of California where average water depth is 200 feet or more.
Right.
And it's clean. That's the other thing. We get a lot of good, clean snow melt. So a lot of things that prevent, like Texas or some of the southern states from producing the same caliber of fish. I shouldn't say it's not big fish, right? A 10-pound fish is always a big fish for anyone.
Yeah.
But when you're talking 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21-pound fish, you really got to have that clean, cold water to keep them healthy because they've been alive for a long time at that point, and that's usually what stops it when you talk about your southern states. They get fungal infections, they get bacterial infections, the water's warmer, there's more stuff growing in it that's not necessarily healthy for them, and in their old age they usually succumb to sickness that we don't have here on the West Coast. So that's part of it. The other part of it is California is a big proponent of the trout stock. There's something about trout that just produces big bass. I don't know what it is. You'd think gizzard shad or any of those other forages that are large feeds for bass would produce real trophy caliber. I mean, even here in California, we've got Clear Lake, which is a top 5 lake in the state, or in the nation, I should say, not even just in the state. But you don't really typically see a lot of those 15, 16, 17, 18, 19-pound caliber fish coming out of Clear Lake. You usually typically see 10 to about 14, and not much else out of that. I mean, still amazing fishery, right? You can't complain.
I was going to say, dude, 5 and 6 pound is legendary in this state. Okay, I mean, flat out. When we were talking off air, and you were like, you got the same thing. No, you don't. No, you guys got California waters, man.
We do.
We share some similarities in things we deal with, but I'll say it. I have no problem just because this state has declared pretty much they've levied war on tournament anglers anymore, and so I'll flat out say bass just don't get any attention. They're considered pretty much quietly. They're considered rough fish out here. If it's not walleye and trout, it's just not going to catch any attention, right? And so our fisheries, they're expensive to fish, and the fishing on the bass, it's tough, man. We just don't see the great quality coming out. Talking about that, and all of our stuff. I don't know. Your reservoirs, are they man-made or are they natural?
The majority of them are man-made.
Yep. That's same with us. Pretty much all of our water's man-made out here.
Yeah, Clear Lake is a natural reservoir. There are a couple other ones, but other than Clear Lake, nobody really fishes a majority of our natural bodies of water. They're usually your high elevation lakes, and there are smallmouth in some of them. But as you're very familiar with high elevation, it's typically not the same as your like midland to highland reservoirs and lowland reservoirs. I mean, really what makes California unique more than anything, I think, is our diversity.
Mm,
When you talk about fishing, especially if you're talking ditch pickles, right? If you're talking
yeah,
bass fishing, California is bar none one of the most diverse fisheries that there is. Just
that's
because we do
awesome.
have those lowland reservoirs, we do have highland reservoirs, we have natural lakes, we have a tidal San Joaquin Delta.
Dang.
So we have all kinds of, variety, I should say, in what you can fish and how you like to fish. So you can really.
And what kind of drive,
Um,
like from you, what kind of drive are you talking to get to these different kind of bodies of
so
water?
I
Is it
kind
like a
of
3-4 hour run, or what are you looking at?
for Clear Lake, yeah, I moved. So I used to live in the Sacramento metropolitan area, and that was pretty central to a lot of stuff. So Clear Lake was only an hour and a half for me. The Delta was only an hour and a half. Folsom Lake was in my backyard. A lot of the highland reservoirs were only about 45 minutes to an hour.
So cool.
Um, but now I moved further south, and I still have amazing fisheries in my backyard. I've got New Maloney's, which is right above me. I'm sure you've seen that one in the news a few times.
Mm-hmm.
I've got probably 15 lakes within an hour and a half drive of my house. And the Delta is still about an hour, but I gave up access to Clear Lake. Clear Lake's about a 4-hour drive for me
Mm,
now. So I don't get up to there as much as I could have or used to, should say. Um, but I have
that's
tons and
cool.
tons of fisheries around me. I used to fish the Delta a lot. Haven't been down there too much since the whole golden mussel fiasco.
Mm,
So I actually haven't fished it probably a good 4 or 5 months when we did the Beretta thing for Nucanoe. Was the last
right.
time I fished it, but not out of my kayak, out of the Fay Island has rental Nucanoes. So
Nice.
when you book the island, he's got a whole fleet. So I just stole some of his and went fishing.
Nice. And it's a great segue. Talk to me about your time with Nucanoe. What brought you to the brand? What brought you to the team side of things? And how long have you been with the team, man?
Yeah, so I'm not a bass fisherman. I was a diehard trout bum. I was a fly fisherman my whole life.
Nice.
Took a long hiatus from fishing, probably, oh my goodness, college plus trout, like probably about 9 years that I stopped fishing almost entirely.
Wow.
Went to school. Once I got a job, I took a job overseas. So I was gone out of the country for about 4.5 years. So 5 years of school plus 4.5 years out of the country. And came back to the States, and I was kind of looking at, what I wanted to do for fun. And, I'd always enjoyed fishing for bass in ponds as a kid, but I'd
Yeah.
never really had any real experience doing it in lakes or targeting bass as a species in general. And I, on a whim, bought a Nucanoe Frontier 12 secondhand.
Nice.
And first time I ever fished out of it was actually a Yakka bass tournament at Folsom Lake.
Okay. All right.
Never fished for bass out of a lake, never done anything. Bought the kayak day one, went out on a tournament and tried to figure it out. And I was a total dweeb. I did not load the weight in the kayak correctly, so I had everything too far back so I could reach the little stern mount motor that I thought that I was going to love, and I was popping a wheelie all day.
Had her trimmed
And I
down.
still caught 4 fish and was in like the top 20 or something.
There you go. Dude, that Frontier for many years, that was our flagship. I mean, she led the way. That thing was a very versatile boat, man, through and through.
I love that kayak. I still have it. That's still my primary fishing kayak. I mean, I'm looking to upgrade to an unlimited here pretty soon, but
Nice.
if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really have a need to go super extravagant. I've got again, when you talk tournament fishing, some of these guys go all out. I mean,
Crazy.
you've seen some of the amazing rigs that some guys invest in, and I really haven't gone crazy with it, to be honest. I've got a 7-inch Garmin. Pretty happy with that. It's on the Yak Attack cell block and switchblade configuration.
Love it.
Built my own rod rack, just angled aluminum and some Amazon 3 rod holders, and then built my tackle crate too. Just a Lowe's double top flip box that I pulled all the pins out and made it a single flip top.
Nice, man.
riveted the lid together. So I keep it really simple in the kayak, and honestly, it's been so good to me that I haven't
What?
felt the
Yeah,
need to change anything. I mean, once you get a spot lock trolling motor and a new canoe, I mean, you can do
dude,
anything that you want.
dude.
You can go saltwater fishing, you can go crabbing, you can go fish rivers, massive bodies of water. I mean, it does not matter. That thing
Yeah.
fishes like a boat.
Yep.
I mean, it's amazing how comfortable you feel in an ocean versus, what you would think typically when somebody says you like to kayak fish.
Yeah.
I don't hesitate to challenge wind. I don't. They're really amazing crafts. Honestly, I never get water inside the hole. I've swamped my kayak more times than I can count. I mean, Berryessa, Clear Lake, those lakes are gnarly when it's windy.
Yep.
You're talking 3, 4, 5, 6 foot rollers if you're really not careful.
Yeah.
Never came close to flipping, never came close to sinking, never, not nothing. Right. So, I mean, for me,
Dude,
it's hard to deviate because it's worked so good for 4 years. I just have
brother,
no real need.
I can echo those sentiments. So to know me, you will know that I am Mr. Play it safe. Don't be stupid. Don't be trying to be macho. Don't put yourself in a bad position. I have no time for these guys. That push themselves into a position they shouldn't be in. Right? It's like, come on. I don't. That's not. I don't have to prove myself to be something that with that. But I can tell you, I have been able to take my unlimited into wind that otherwise the majority of guys are getting out of there. They won't go into it. And I'm telling you that when I tell these guys that no, I actually went out and fished the dam in this because I had spot lock, which I could keep my nose right in, take it head on. And that unlimited, man, the stability on that thing, it's big water. You're going to need to really get some big water before you're going to rattle me or shake me in that thing because, like you said, I feel comfortable. I feel like we're still in control. As long as I pay attention to what I'm doing with navigation, we're good.
Yep.
And she handles that stuff. So yeah, dude, that's a comfortable feeling to know you got a craft like the Frontier or the Unlimited that can handle that.
2 times in all of the times that I've been out have I ever felt uncomfortable.
Hmm.
One of them, I did not check the weather, and I full sent it to Clear Lake on a Friday night. I got off work early or something. It was like 11 o'clock. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to Clear Lake. So I just packed up, drove the 2 hours to Clear Lake or something, and I got there and I looked at the water and I was like, boy,
Ooh.
it was a real strong south wind. And I don't know how familiar you are with Clear Lake,
Not
but
at all.
a big open bowl on the front. I mean, massive lake, big open bowl on the front, comes through the narrows and opens up into 2 river arms.
Hmm.
And I was on the right hand river arm, which is the rattlesnake arm. So that's like 30 miles of lake that had wind blowing to my direction,
Straight down,
straight
right?
down the pipe. And it wasn't terrible when I launched. It was about my comfort limit. We're talking sustained 15, 25, gusts to like 35, 45.
Yep.
The gusts are a little uncomfortable, but it wasn't like miserable. And I was going to fish behind islands anyway that were completely wind protected, so I wasn't like worried about sitting and being abused all day. I just had to
Right.
make it the quarter mile or half mile or whatever it was to the island.
Right.
Got out to the island, no problem. Was ready to come home dark, and I didn't recognize that the wind had significantly picked up and it was like 35 sustained. We had like 6 to 6.5 foot rollers.
Oh, dude, and now it was at your back on the
And
way
it was
back.
at my back on the way back. Technically, it
Oh,
was at an angle, right? And man, I was cresting waves and coming over, and like 3/4 of my kayak would be surfing out of the water as I was coming down. I've
oh,
never been more scared in a kayak in my life, but that I still survived. I didn't flip. I
yep.
definitely had major pucker factor, and I worked out my butt cheeks pretty good. But I survived.
Tested the grip on that 360 Fusion.
Oh man, I was yeah, that was dumb. That was really dumb. And then there have been a couple of other times where like you said, the weather changes a lot, and you think it's going to be bad, but it's not that bad, and then you go out and it's much worse than they said it's going to be, and
Yeah.
done that a handful of times, especially our winter storms. You know, you don't necessarily go out in December. I go out in December all the time. So when we catch a good winter storm, usually that's a really good big swim bait bite. So as long as it's not too drizzly and too rainy and windy, I'll go out. But there've been a couple of times where I should not.
Right, right. You know, one of my first events when I was first getting into the unlimited, I had used the NK180 was my main for the longest time, and then I had the opportunity to put the XI3 on, so I did, and fell in love with it. I'm like, okay, this is kind of a game changer now. I also put the wireless foot pedal in there. Not, I didn't steer with it, but it was so handy to hit that spot lock and then that motor on and off with my foot. So it kept me fishing hands free. You know, I could literally, when I'd hook up with a fish, I could, my right foot immediately goes right to the anchor mode. Boop, click it. The boat gets itself righted, puts me in position. And now I can just focus on the fish. So I fall in love with this, right? And I'm at Bull Shoals, and I went around this really, really big point. Had to come out of the main area that I was in and did the mile run around and back down into this other little finger. And I fished down in there, and it's a good day. I stay in there a lot longer than I probably should have because I could see the weather coming in. And I had to go around that point to get back. And man, that wind was coming. I was on the south side of Bull Shoals, and that wind was coming out of the north straight down on us. And I got into some, solid 3-footers in there, 2 to 3 footers that I ended up taking on. And I was still relatively new to kayaks. And like you said, water would come over the bow and in, and then before I knew it, just gone, right? As soon as I popped those scupper plugs on the back, that Venturi effect kicked in and just boom, sucked it right out, as I was moving. And from that point on, it's like, okay, yeah, I think I understand where this thing's coming from. And man, I have a plenty of experience in the boat world. And so as long as I just navigate, play smart, and don't be dumb, then yeah, the comfort, the stability of the Nucanoe just as a whole. I've never been in a Flint or we do have a U10 now in our little mini fleet, but I've never been in a Flint or a Pursuit. But I've also heard the same thing, is that these things, just for what they are, extremely stable, for the craft. Do you have any experience with the other
I
line?
have used the Flint. I have not had the luxury. I almost bought a Pursuit actually, but the only thing stopping me is I'm over a Switchblade. But anyway,
Yeah.
I have been in the Flint. Great boat, small again. It's not necessarily what you feel with the U10 and the F12 or U12, but
Right.
I would have no issues using that boat pretty much any time. I mean, I'm not going to go the same way that I would in my 12-foot kayak and charge into 3.5-foot rollers, no problem. But,
Right.
if I were out and, I mean, where I really see that boat being beautiful is, you've got lots of not really low rapids, but reasonable rapid rivers that you could go fish with that boat, and it would be a lot of fun. That's where I would really love that kayak, honestly, is going to, like, if you're a Tennessee guy and you have all those small creeks and rivers that kind of meander, not a lot of classed rapids, that type of stuff.
Yep.
I would love that boat for that because it paddles like a dream. It feels great.
I was
You
going to
can
say,
still
especially
stand
for
in
that
it.
paddling side too. Guys
Yeah,
that like to paddle.
That's beautiful for that. I really enjoyed it for that. Like I said, we had one out on the Delta, and the Delta is just big, right? I mean, that's the hard part. When you talk about the Delta, you're talking thousands of river miles.
Wow.
But it's hard to get around. Like if you were gonna put it in somewhere and toss it over on the riprap and jump into the Delta, I don't know if you've seen it, but it's all man-made levees and lots of rows run on the levees, so you can drop a kayak in off riprap and do all that stuff. Would love it for that. There are some creeks in the northern Delta that I would absolutely love to just throw a Flint down, paddle around for a bit, fish, quarter mile either side and come back. So I definitely see that. Pursuit, again, I would love to see just to try it, just to see what it would be like in comparison. It's fast, I know that much.
Yeah.
But stability wise, I don't know how much trade off you have or not for the thinner hull.
Yep. Yeah, I know a couple guys that have them and that swear by them, that absolutely love them. And it was when Nucanoe decided to no longer build the pursuits anymore. It was met with some a couple of those guys were pretty diehard. They were not happy about seeing the pursuit go away. But I mean, it's business, right? At the end of the day, Nucanoe's got to make its what's selling, what's not. They make good boats, man. That's just all there is to it. And it's the thing I love is that we're sleepers, right? The Nucanoe is a sleeper boat. People get caught up in all the bells and whistles that a lot of the other manufacturers will throw on them, and they're cool. Make no mistake, they are cool. There's some great kayaks out there. But the thing that to me, I don't know about you, but the thing that I love on the Nucanoe is how it's so customizable in that I set this thing up for the day or for the trip, for the water. I can change configurations, moving my graphs if I want to move them to center, if I want to move them to a side, bring them up, bring them down. The flexibility with configuration is a huge piece, and it's mine. You know what I mean? It's like you said, you've custom built almost everything on yours through and through. It's yours. That is Joseph Tax's F12. No one else has one like yours, and that's there's something cool about that because it's set up for just the way you like it.
And beyond that, I mean, you get into all those bells and whistles and you almost feel confined. Like when I hop into a lot of other kayaks, it feels like a cockpit in a spaceship.
Right.
It's cool. It's got all these bells and whistles, but one of my favorite pictures for Nucanoe, I'm standing backwards with my foot on the side of the kayak, fishing around my rod rack because the wind is blowing this direction. I'm spot locked this way, and I can do that.
That's awesome.
And I'm super comfortable doing that. I'm fishing it just like you would in a boat, where you're going to hit spot lock, walk to the back, and fish off the back if it's inconvenient to cast into the wind.
Done that a
And
lot.
where you start talking about all the pedal drives and all those things, you end up being really confined to looking forward.
Yeah.
You're stuck forward, you're stuck doing that. And that's one of the things that I love about the Nucanoe more than anything is just, it really is a platform that you can do whatever you want on. And then the other thing is you don't sacrifice speed with all this stability, with all this configuration, with everything else. When you start talking old towns, natives, I mean, Hobies, all of them really, they draft so much deeper than the Nucanoe that when you slap on an XI3 like you and I have, they're a lot slower than us. It's just an inevitable side effect of weight and hold geometry and a couple other things. But
Yeah.
my F12 is fast, really fast. I mean, it's a bit faster than the U12, but I'm averaging 4.8 to 4.9 on an XI3. Nothing
cool.
fancy, just the standard 3 braid, and that's pretty quick for a kayak.
Yeah, it is.
I mean, you had an NK 180, and you were probably about that, maybe a little bit faster than me,
Yeah.
in an F12.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure, man. It's that's the Rommel. I mean, he out in your neck of the woods. He did a ton of cool configs, on different things he would do with that stuff. It was always so fun to see what else was coming from his lab, out there going through that piece.
Wizard is accurate.
Yep, exactly. So on the tournament scene, man, you've been fishing the tournament scene now. You did throw your hat in the ring on the bass side of things. How long you been doing the tournament scene, and is it primarily there in Cali, or do you stretch out across the nation at all? Or
I haven't stretched out across the nation. A lot of it is my career. So I'm an engineer for trade, so I don't have a lot of flexibility in time, Monday to Friday, 9 to 5 type job.
Gotcha.
So I mostly stick to California. I've done a majority of what I would say Central California and up. I haven't done a lot of the SoCal stuff. I try to keep it to about a 4.5 hour drive max for me.
Yep.
3 years now that I've been in the tournament scene. Done a bunch of different circuits, primarily Yakabas. So I'm sure you're all pretty familiar with that through Greg Blanchard and his YouTube.
Yep.
But I've dabbled in a lot of the other ones like bass. Done 1 or 2 KBF and a couple others as well. And it's big. We're not necessarily the same as bass or Hobie or any of those other traveling tournament circuits out east, but we average well over 100 anglers per event for Yakabass, which is a pretty sizable group of folk getting out.
Yeah, it is.
So that's cool. I mean, the scene, I'm not sure what it's like for you, but the people here are great. That's part of what keeps me in kayak fishing, is
the community,
regardless of background, demographic, whatever. The people who choose to fish out of a kayak and do it competitively are generally pretty good people.
Couldn't agree more.
And love that camaraderie, love that environment. So that's what kind of keeps me doing it. Obviously, we've all got a competitive bug. I think that's why we tournament fish.
Right.
It's not necessarily for clout or for recognition, because, again, we're the plastic armada. It's not the same thing as going out in fiberglass and chasing after golden trophies. But
I was going to say, I can tell you firsthand, the only difference is we're a heck of a lot more calm about it than, because I rub shoulders with that group, man. And I did that for several years. And I think it's just, I don't know. I think it may be because of the investment that is on that side, that the tension is much higher. I tell people this all the time. I traveled around. I was coming out of Minnesota and then traveling down to Missouri and fishing there in Oklahoma and hitting the central, regions. And I can tell you, I had like 2 really good buddies, right? 2 guys that I knew from all of this. I had a lot of other acquaintances, but 2 guys that I could say would help me if something happened. They'd help a guy out. I flipped that around. Now in the kayak game, I've been in since 2022. In the kayak side of things, I bet you I've met 2 people that I probably think might not. Everybody else I've worked with, they would give you the shirt off their back. They give you their own phone. I have watched, in a very competitive series, I have watched a guy that was leading hand his phone to the dude that beat him, because the dude's phone, I'm not sure what happened, but something, he couldn't get his fish submitted. But he had him in the cloud. And so this guy literally gave him his phone and said, go ahead and log into your account, do what you got to do. So the guy sat there and uploaded his fish and knocked the guy out of first place and knocked him down to second place. And he said, yeah, I'd do it again. Yeah, absolutely, man. It's just, and
it's
that's
the right thing to do.
Right? It's the community. It's the people behind that stuff. I couldn't agree with you more, man. Kayak fishing is filled of some awesome humans.
I think the other thing too, like you mentioned, high pace is the difference. When I fish with the bass boat side, because I've tried dabbling in it to see if I would like it, and it's about running here as fast as you can, run there. You're almost like anxious. And I think that's part of the tension, because you get frazzled when you hop into a bass boat, because there really is no limit to where you can go, what you can do, all those things. And kayaking really forces you to slow down, think about what's immediately around you, be more methodical, take a deep breath.
Yeah.
And all those things. And that's part of why I feel like, one, personally, I enjoy it, because if I were in a bass boat, you'd always be like, oh, I'm going to run 70 miles an hour, 20 miles down the lake, and then I'm going to run 15 miles. You just end up wasting a lot of time doing silly things like that. And it makes you almost anxious. Like I said, every time I'm in a bass boat tournament, I feel anxious. Whereas in a kayak tournament, I'm having a good time. I may be hyper focused and fixated on what I'm doing, and you get heightened emotions and feelings, and when you make mistakes and stuff. But that's man, part of the allure, I guess.
I qualified for the ABA National Championship many moon ago, and it was down. I was living in Minnesota at the time, and it was at Old Hickory in Tennessee, and went down there and got through practice, and to find the grass that I wanted to find, literally day one, poor co-angler, he thought we were going to go just a couple miles, and I'm like, sit back, get yourself comfy, because we got a 45-mile run to go. And so we literally started off in the morning, and that was 45 miles upriver. And so, cracked it around 60, 65, and had my cup of coffee and just made sure I wasn't running into any, logs floating down that that stinking river, because there were plenty of them there. But you head off, and it's a lot bigger area, because you start thinking, maybe I got to do this, or maybe, you don't, but maybe it's where I wanted to go, is the water I wanted to go fish, type thing. So Yeah, not uncommon.
But yeah, so I mean that's what I like. I mean I like that. The other thing I've noticed, like you said, West Coast anglers do so well when you cross out
Yeah.
off into the rest of the country.
Yep.
The other thing I've noticed is that kayak anglers do exceptional when they cross over into the bass boat world
Mm-hmm.
because, we don't have that luxury of, oh, fish aren't biting in spot one. I've got spots B, C, D, and they're all 15, 20 miles away with
Yeah.
completely different water conditions, right? So I feel like being a kayak angler really forces you to be better, to develop techniques that you wouldn't necessarily pick up otherwise. And I do appreciate it for that.
Spots
It's
within the spots, right? And learning how to pick all the meat off the bone.
100%. And doing something that you wouldn't think to do in situations where you have the opportunity to go run and do something else, right? Like I know so many guys, like if they ain't eating a jig here, they're going to go somewhere else and find a jig bite. That's all they're going
Right.
to do.
Right.
They won't pick up a shaky head. They won't pick up something else to throw into the same area that they're already fishing, even though
Yeah.
they know there's fish there, to try to figure out what their mood is that day.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's also part of, tangent here, but why I've grown to really love bass fishing is those nuances, like
Right.
being a trout fisherman my whole life. It's always been match the hatch, throw what the fish are eating in front of them. And generally, if you do that, you catch fish. I mean, it
Right.
doesn't matter time of day, time of year. It's really, in my opinion, easy to catch trout. I find that bass are extremely moody,
Yeah.
very particular sometimes. Sometimes it's lights out, you can't do anything wrong. Sometimes you can't do anything right.
No
And
kidding.
it just never gets boring to me. There's just a million different ways to catch them. And every single time you go out, you never know what cards you're going to get dealt.
I was gonna say it's just never the same game twice. And that's part of what brought it's one of the things that helped the TPO why we decided to go after this, and we love introducing our warfighting family in the nation to this type of fishing. Is really digging them down in. We get into the fishing a little bit more than maybe some other nonprofits that do the work that we do, and that's kind of one of the lures. That's one of the reasons that some guys and gals will want to come with us, because we're going to talk with them a little bit more about the fishing side of things and really help them dig into this. Now, what they don't realize, well, they do it if they hear me say this all the time, is that this is part of that peace of mind that when you get so hyper focused on finding that fish, right? Or what bait is it this time? What presentation is it this? What's the wind doing now? Talking to you. Well, lo and behold, you're quieting everything else down around you, and now you got this focus piece, and nothing else really matters anymore. To me, man, that's what I think attracts so many people. They don't even realize it, though, is just the focus that you get out of getting out there. And like you said, Joseph, the kayak side of things is a more intimate, one-on-one, mano-a-mano, close quarter, that you're going with the fish there. You don't battle against them because they'll beat you, but you learn how to work with them and work with your surroundings. So super cool stuff. So, dude, you stay super busy. You're definitely a brainiac, obviously, on the engineer side. We got that part. You stay fishing. You got some great fisheries around you. One of the other things we talked about is you've got a podcast that you're involved with. Now, is it just you or you and a few other folks?
I've got two other partners that co-host it with me, Pua Yang and Max Lee. Pua
Nice.
is our crown Delta champion, and Max Lee is our big fish man.
Nice.
You want to talk about an amazing way to start off first fish of the year. We both went out fishing on New Year's, him on his home lake, me on one of the lakes by me, and he cracked his first fish of the year at 1342.
Oh, my God. Oh, that little
Big
thing?
Fish Max, and that's not even his PB.
Good Lord.
He usually averages 3 to 5 double-digit bass a year, and usually in that 11 to 13 pound range.
What's his deal? Is it big fish, big baits? Is it just...
He's Big Fish Max. It doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
I think last year he caught a 26 and a half, 12 pounder on a baby brush hog.
Good night.
The year before that, I think his biggest bag is somewhere near 50, and it was all on an LV500.
What the? Good night. Yeah, that's
Big
a
big
ton of
fish,
fun.
Max.
Yeah.
And Pua is our crown Delta champion. Man, you don't want to go against Mr. Chatterbait.
Right.
I think
Right.
he's won. I don't know, if we had 20 tournaments on the Delta, he'd win 19.
Good night. That's awesome. That's awesome.
But yeah, we've been doing it together for a couple years now. It's really not I don't want to say a production show. It's a lot more
Yeah.
about giving back to the community. We talk a lot about techniques in depth. Mr. Chatterbait himself will talk to you all day about how he fishes chatterbait.
So cool.
Max will tell you everything you need to know about fish, how they set up, where to target giants, those types of things. We try to get other anglers on. I'm not sure if you're familiar with Damien, but Damien Tao is a good friend of ours, so he comes on and drops some of his infinite wisdom.
That's awesome.
Really, really one of the best fishermen I've ever met in my entire life. So we try to do that. We try to dive into techniques. We really try to just get people more familiar with fishing and feel more confident going out to catch fish.
And that's called the Community Hole Podcast. For those of you on the audio side of things, check it out on YouTube. And you are on the audio side as well. You guys have
yeah. So I believe we're starting our Spotify now, so you can listen
Nice.
on Spotify. We're on Instagram. We're on Facebook. We do recorded shows typically every week or every 2 weeks,
Nice.
and then we also weekly do what we call After Dark.
Nice.
So if you just want to hop on and shoot fishing, we got a couple hours every Wednesday night where people get on, rant about things. I think tonight they're ranting about forward-facing sonar or something.
Imagine that.
Surprise, surprise.
Right.
Another amazing fisherman, Matthew Brannon. I'm not sure if you've heard of him, but he'll be on tonight talking. He's from, I think, South Carolina or North Carolina. I can't remember. One of the Carolinas.
Okay.
Been bass fishing his whole life. Probably the most amazing shallow water power fisherman I've ever seen in my life.
Nice.
When we went to Clear Lake, I've never seen a human being make as many flips as that human being can, as accurately as he can.
Right.
And just boom, 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 boom. I'm still making like 2 casts in the time that he made like 8.
Right.
We're skipping a frog, man. Oh my God. I mean, if you gave him a pocket that big, 60 feet away, he could skip a frog through it.
Crazy.
But
it's fun watching these guys that have honed their craft like that, right? And watching them. I had a chance to marshal in a couple of pro event on the La Crosse River system there for Pool 789, and I was in the boat with Mike McClelland, Josh Bertrand, Justin Atkins, and watching these guys operate. I mean, they're doing the same things you and I are doing, except they're just unbelievably more efficient at what they're doing. Yeah.
I mean, I thought I was a good flipper, right? Because I don't flip. I should clarify. We all pitch, right? I don't know anybody other than some old timers that lift line up and
I was going to say
that whole thing.
Mr. Brower. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a handful that actually flip. We all call it flipping, but I pitch, and I thought I was pretty decent at it. I like to fish the Delta. I would call myself a Delta rat. That's a lot of toolies. That's a lot of punching vegetation. 1.25 ounce tungsten weight, flipping a million times. I thought I was good and efficient, and man, I tell you, we were doing the same thing, and he was getting at least 4 more casts in to my 1.
Right.
I just don't even know how you reel that fast, how you pink that fast. It's amazing to see how efficient you can be. It's almost inspiring to a certain degree.
Yeah.
So I can't imagine with you on a pro. The other thing I would love to see with pros is just the way that they think with seasonal patterns, fish behaviors, mood, that type of thing. I feel like that would be really insightful.
Josh Bertrand was one of the most memorable. Watching this guy, literally, you couldn't tell what time it was. He operated at this even keel across the entire day. Never had a lax. Never had a sheesh, type moment. Never. It was just always click, 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 click till that final. Okay, we got to head back. And it was like, wow, and it didn't settle on me until after the event. Then I started, that's when I could actually take the angler in me and actually kind of go through the day and just reflect back on what I watched him do there. And yeah, it's decision making. It's a strong mental game, and it's just the fine art details that we all talk about. That these guys, there's a reason they're there, and it's not by mistake. It's not because they got money. These guys have earned their way to this level of fishing, and it's a different ball game. Like you said, watching those guys operate, man, is crazy stuff.
And like you said, discipline. I think a lot of people think, when we talk about tournament fishing, when we talk about gambling, as people like to
Right.
call us out for, which is pretty apt. I mean, honestly, it's always you against the fish, but really it's you against yourself.
Yep.
I've found in all the years of tournament fishing and all the times that I've ever actually jumped into a tournament, it has always been you against yourself.
Yep.
So I can only imagine as you get into the level of something like the elites, you really have to have emotional fortitude on a level that I personally couldn't fathom, because you just have to stay in control of yourself. You have to make those decisions. You have to be very, very level-headed.
Yeah.
And it's almost robotic at a certain point, because you have to be so detached from it, especially when you make mistakes, because it happens. I mean, you're never going to be perfect on the water, and bouncing back immediately, getting right back into what you were doing, carrying on. I mean, sure. Mike Iaconelli doesn't seem like that kind of person, but I'm sure.
That is a bipolar cat, man. I don't care how you want to paint it. I'm not speaking to his character, but homie is off the charts, man.
Yeah,
I've watched him kick $13,000 worth of electronics off the front of his boat throwing a fit, so on camera. So it's like, come on, man.
I've seen a few, and I laugh, and I'm like, I feel it. I completely understand.
Yeah.
There's nothing worse than losing a fish right at the boat that is going to be worth money. I don't know what to equate that to, because I'd never experienced it before this, but there's a whole series of emotions and like mental abuse that you put yourself through when you watch like a 20-inch fish fall off as you're trying to net it. Like there's nothing quite like it. But
I'll leave you with a Van Dam story that was told by a guy that got to travel in the boat with him. And this was I tried to find this clip. I haven't found it yet, but I'm going to keep looking. But this is just kind of, so it was during Van Dam's heydays, in those years where he was just dominating. So he's out. It's been a tough bite. It's like 1 o'clock. They got like an hour and a half, 2 hours before it's, go in. And he's got nothing in the boat. And he gets out to this area, and he's working smallmouth. And the guy said he just hadn't really gotten into any bites. He just hadn't got into anything. And all of a sudden he throws out this jerkbait. And it's a different color that than the other jerk baits he had. He starts dealing, and boom, he hooks up. In Van Dam fashion, he's burning him back to the boat, and as he gets ready to boat flip him, boom, comes off. And before the guy can even go, oh my gosh, to himself, Van Dam's already cast it again, and he's out there, and he's working it. Boom, hooks in again. Gets this one all the way back to the boat, and as he's right at the boat, thing comes out of the water, kicks, boom, spits and snaps off his bait. So the lure goes flying, the fish goes off, and Van Dam's sitting there with this. He turns around and looks at the marshal. He sets the rod down, and he's like, well, at least I know what they're biting. And he goes back to work. He grabs another rod off the deck, and he just goes right back at it. And the guy said it didn't shake him. He didn't cuss. He didn't come up with anything other than he took the positive out of it, right? He was just like, well, at least I know what they're biting now. And he just goes back to work, and he said, yeah, he went in with 5 fish. I don't know how well he did, but he did. He ended up coming in with 5 fish because he didn't let those two things, shake him or rattle him. And I'm like, nah, I don't think I could. I'd have probably just lost my business right there on the boat.
Oh, dude. Maybe I'll get to see you this year. Maybe you'll come out for West Coast Championship. But last year rocked me good. I mean, I was on a really good big bait bite. My first cast of the day, lines in, I hooked into probably an 8-pound class fish, 23 inches at least.
Damn.
staring at it going into the net, and I have no idea what happened. Half of it was in the net, half of it was out of the net, and my bait went flying over my head, and that fish missed the net and fell out. That's how I started my morning. I did that 2 more times. The other 2 times weren't quite as close to being landed as that. And man, that just rocked my day. And it got worse from there. I mean, I thought I was going to have, a terrible day. I think I had like 3 or 4 fish that I'd actually caught and measured, and was not, the near 100-inch bag I was expecting to have. And, it rocked me to my core. I was in a bad mood. I'd been standing all day. I went into a marina to frog, and I actually blacked out and fell off my kayak because I'd been standing all day. I locked my knees, and when I went to sit down after to start frogging, all the blood rushed back to my head after I'd been all fuming and pissed off all day, and I blacked out and fell off my kayak.
Oh my gosh, dude. And PFD took care of you, thank goodness.
Only reason I'm alive. Yep, always wear your PFD. But yeah, so I can definitely attest to how your mood can just make a day worse and worse and worse and
wow,
worse.
Dude.
Only time I've ever had any accidents with my kayak, never flipped it, never anything. I stood for the first 5.5 hours of the tournament, and I guess I locked my knees, and when I went to go sit down, man, all the blood rushed to my head.
Good night. Dude, that's scary.
Yeah,
that's scary stuff.
Don't let it get to your head and make stupid decisions like that, because karma got me good that day for sure. Very thankful for an NRS Chinook. So if you ever want a kayak specific PFD, I highly recommend the Chinook, because I might be dead right now if it hadn't been for that.
It's the only one I'll wear. Yeah, I see.
Self-righted me when I came to. My chest was up, my head was out of the water.
Love it. Did its job.
That's all it's there for. But
Love
I can tell you, attitude makes a big difference. The outcome of your day is all about your attitude. I promise you.
Good stuff. So for those of you listening on the audio side of this stuff here, Joseph's Instagram, YouTube, you're going to get it at Tax and Lips. That's TAXN as in Nora, LIPS. Tax and Lips, like ripping lips, and Tax like his last name. So hit him up there, get a follow on there, Instagram, YouTube. You can follow along with awesome content, see if we can catch some of that big fish stuff going on out there as well. Also on YouTube, the Community Hole Podcast. Give these guys a follow. Give them. I know I'm going to be checking it out and tuning in there and seeing what's going on. Because anytime it's that jealousy. I love to watch guys. They're able to go do stuff that I can't. And fish in places that I'm not allowed. So,
well, qualify for West Coast and come
right,
out.
Right.
Come do it. Come fish Clear Lake. It'll rock your socks.
So I've got a buddy out there. He's active military, U.S. Air Force tech sergeant out there, and he's talked to me about coming out. And I was doing the math on the drive, and brother, I'll tell you. So in Colorado, we're 12 hours away from good tournament waters, right? Real good tournament, bigger waters. Dude, Cali's like a 16, 17-hour run for us from out here, and we got to go over a mountain range to get there, so it's...
I've done the drive, I know. I drove from Denver to California when I moved out here. Very, very familiar. Done it like 4 or 5 times. I was
going to say, and there's a whole lot of nothing in between, I always tell people... We tell people out here, because of our population boom from Cali, we're like Eastern California. That's pretty much... We've got, some casinos, some sand,
separated between 2 mountain ranges and a desert. But,
and a few hookers between here and there. And then there's Central California. We're the eastern side.
You're not wrong,
right?
But there is nothing quite like Clear Lake. I mean, I'm sure you've had a lot of experiences all over the U.S.
Never Cali.
I don't know very many places in the United States that you can go fishing and catch 55-pound fish and start shaking them off like they're a dink. I mean, I even had the luxury last year where I caught 2 fish over 6 pounds on the same lure in one cast. It was like 12, 13 or 12, 15 or something for 2 fish on one cast, 2 for 1. And that was 2 for 1. Number 7 or 8 of the day.
And it's just a crankbait of some kind? They're competing? They both hit it?
Big swim baits.
Okay.
But yeah, they're competing to eat the big swim baits. I mean, they do it with crankbaits. They do it with A-rigs. Nice. I mean, you like I said, I mean, I think that day we ended with 29 something, almost 30. We couldn't quite break 30. I think between the two of us, we caught somewhere in the ballpark of 70 fish.
Gee, many Christmas.
And I
All
think
right,
our
yeah, it's
smallest
worth
fish
it.
for that day was 328. And
What
big
are the
fish was
campgrounds like
770.
out there? Are they
Amazing.
reasonable?
State park is great.
Okay. 35, $40 a night?
I want to say it's 35, $40 a night. The
Okay,
sites
cool.
are pretty well maintained. The trash pandas are a little bit gnarly. That's the only thing that you got to worry about is the trash pandas are pretty epic at Clear Lake.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah, if you got to be careful there at night. I definitely have done a few car camping trips and woken up and looked out and there's like 50 sets of eyes staring at me.
What the hell?
There's trash pandas there like you have never seen anywhere
Good
ever.
Lord.
I guarantee you, if you go fish Clear Lake any day of the week, anywhere on the lake, you will see a trash panda on shore at least once.
That's awesome.
They're
Very cool.
everywhere. But
I don't know about that,
campgrounds,
gang of them, but
dude, so just up above State Park, there's County Park, and County Park has like a bunch of open garbage cans and stuff because it's just it's like I don't know what you would call it. It's got like a park and slides and a little swim area if you're crazy enough to go swimming in Clear Lake. And a boat ramp, and obviously all the garbage cans aren't bear proof or anything like that. They should be. They're not. And I rolled up to go fishing there for pre-fishing for a tournament last year, this time of year. And I got there at like 3:30 in the morning. I left my house at like 11 and I got there around 3:30 in the morning and I was setting up my kayak to go fishing. And I got to the boat ramp where all the trash cans are and I shine my flashlight and there's probably 30 trash pandas
Good
staring
Lord.
at me, just rummaging through the trash can from whoever left whatever picnic from the night before.
Good Lord. Yeah, man, that's a lot of raccoons in one location for sure.
That's the only thing I would say with camping. But you go up there like West Coast for you, right? I mean, I know it's a long drive, but community is great. People always get huge Airbnbs. You'll have an Airbnb to stay in for less than $200 for 5-6 days.
Very cool.
That's usually how we roll. This trip, which I'll be leaving for Clear Lake in 2 weeks, I'll camp because I'm only there for one night. But normally we get an Airbnb.
Yeah.
Everybody invites everybody. We all cook. We all take turns. I'll do that stuff. So it's great. And the fishing there, when it's on, there is no place like Clear Lake. I mean,
that's cool.
The first experience I ever had with Clear Lake was one of those days, and I can tell you when you have one, it's magical. It really is. Just 50, 60, 70 fish all over 3.5, 4 pounds.
All right, you sold me. I'll figure it out. Got to figure out a way to get out there now. I'm in. The state parks need to hook you up with a commission of some kind.
Yeah, it's
Right?
a beautiful park. They do a great job taking care of it. I fish out of there all the time. Clear Lake in general, majority of the places are well kept, but I mean it's the same as I guess any good fishery anywhere.
Yeah.
It is kind of a weird crack town. I'm not going to say Clear Lake's not, but then again, pretty much all of Central California is a weird crack town.
Right.
We
got them out here. You go down to Trinidad, which is a pretty good reservoir way down south on the border, and yeah, dude, that's. I think the transient population down there is higher than the actual population. So it's.
So Clear Lake is in the middle of nowhere, so it definitely gets that, but. Yeah. A lot of the areas are pretty safe. There's only a couple areas that are a little dodgy. And, the fishing. The other cool thing about Clear Lake is it really doesn't matter what style of fishing you prefer. There is something for everyone on that lake.
That's cool. I like those fisheries.
Deep rock cranking, there are tons and tons of deep rock. You like finesse fishing with darter heads or flick shakes or drop shot. Everywhere. You want to power fish and flip, you can power fish and flip. You want to scope and dangle a minnow, you can scope and dangle a minnow. You want to throw the biggest swim baits of your life, you can go do that.
So cool.
I mean, literally anything that you can think of technique wise, there is water that sets up for it. And there are so many fish in the lake, there are always fish set up doing that. It's the only fishery that I think we have in California where you never know who's going to win when you go to a tournament there. And you're
I
never
like
going to
that.
know what they were doing when they won that tournament.
Those are some of the best. It's like it's a good fishery and it offers a lot of variety. So yeah, it keeps the door open for the
Anybody.
angler that makes the decisions that day. And yeah, super cool. Well, listen, man, we appreciate you. We clocked on our hour here. We appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule to sit down with us here and talk. We were talking with Joseph Tax here at Team Nucanoe. Teammate of mine, so make sure you're checking him out on his socials, Instagram, YouTube, at Tax and Lips. Check out the podcast, the Community Hold podcast as well. Make sure to give those guys a follow. Dude, I'm going to be watching you guys out there, and I'll be looking forward to having you back on the show here, maybe celebrating a win or
maybe we'll just check in after I fish Clear Lake all next month.
Right? That would be good. Yeah, for sure. We should set it up and yeah, you can show us all the cool pics, all the grip and grins, and we'll see what's going on.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks again for having me. I really appreciate it. Thank you for your time and for what you do. Yeah, I've done my fair share of the Wounded Warrior Project, and especially in regards to fishing. So it means a lot to me personally. Appreciate it.
Of course, man. That's serving those that serve. That's our job out here, and it's done through a team. A lot of people, make this kind of stuff. I'm just the goofball that gets to push the paperwork around. So
it all helps.
Yes, sir.
You never realize how much of a difference you can make in somebody's life with something as silly as fishing.
Just sharing your passion. That's right, man. Good stuff. Folks at home, make sure to give these guys a follow, and also on our YouTube channel, make sure to smash that subscribe. It's a great way to support the cause, support the mission, what we're doing out there, support the Doc Talk podcast. Check out Heroes Media Group. Make sure you give those guys a good follow as well. They make all this possible so we can get out there. Joseph, thank you, brother. You have an awesome season. No more passing out on the kayaks, dude. Don't want to hear any more of those scary ass stories.
That's the only one, I promise. I won't do that again. And I attest it was my attitude. I had a terrible attitude, and I got humbled really quick.
Yeah, for sure. Folks, thank you so very much for all your support out there. We love you. We appreciate you. As always, tight lines. Be safe.